Greetings, I am Malik Seneferu. I was born and raised in Bayview-Hunters Point. No matter where me and my mother moved, no matter where, I would later had a sister and would have other brothers that would come forth. I would, I would, Bayview-Hunters Point was like the foundation of home for me. Number one, my grandmother, she worked here in Bayview-Hunters Point as she had her own business as a barber. She actually worked right on the corner at 3rd and Newcomb for 56 years. And she was the only barber that really would cook food and give free haircuts. So you get to eat, get you a free haircut. If you didn't have no money, she would clean you up, make you feel like $1 million. There was something about in my grandmother's touch that I don't know. I still can't explain it today. Magic doesn't do it. But she also was a tailor, and I would see her. She would come home times at night and light up the sewing machine, and I would sit at her feet, and I would really look at the fabric that she would be sewing. And I remember kind of looking at the design that she would be putting together, and I would try to draw that. From that relationship of me being her eldest grandchild was really, really important in terms of how I would move. She was the first person I told what I would do when I become an adult, and I told her I wanted to be a minister. That was really big because I didn't realize that my grandmother held a high position in the church and in the church community. And so she held the position of mother, this group of women that they would call the Eastern Star. So everybody called her mama. And seeing that and growing up, no matter where we were going, whether we're living in Fillmore or we're living in Sunnydale, or we're living in a hotel, or living in sleeping on somebody's couch, I always felt like when I got on the 15, I just felt like I was at home. I was like about to go home. And my grandmother was sort of that vibration for me. My earliest memory when I was about maybe 5 years old, that was probably, I remember being on the corner of 3rd and Newcomb and watching Dewey Crumpler on the scaffold, actually watching. I didn't know at that time it was Dewey Crumpler. It was later until me and him sat down and ate, and I got a chance to tell him I saw that mural being worked on. And he said, well, if you saw that, you saw me, But it was quite an amazing experience seeing that. And I remember saying, I want to do that when I grew up. Well, today, I have several projects throughout Bayview-Hunters Point, and especially throughout California, but primarily in Bayview-Hunters Point. If you were to walk down the street, you might find something from me that I took part in creating, or led in creating, or just simply created on my own. And so right now we're living in a time, it's a bittersweet time. Bitter side is all of the people that I wished that could be here to see what I see is not here with me. So all of my elders have died. My mother, my father, who I've never seen before, my grandmother, my grandfather, auntie, a lot of the people who were really with me in my home stage of growing up and deciding what I was going to be, never really. Well, my mother, she got a chance to come down and do this utility box painting, and we painted the first utility box on 3rd and Oakdale. And my mother got a chance to come down and see me actually work on that, and I have a little footage of her with my wife today, who came and decided she wanted to help out. So I'm actually living my dream. It's just that the people, again, the bittersweet of it is that the people who I wanted to see me live my dream is not here with me, but they are with me. They're here in my heart. But to have them kind of like put my arms around them and to say, hey, what do you think? From the times of, I know you're an artist, but, you got to bring some money in, but at an early age, I learned how to sell. So I was a salesman, very little salesman, and grew older. My whole from age 10 up to about maybe 18, I sold things from door to door. Doing this sort of candy thing where we had to say this speech and sell this expensive candy. And here it is, you have this kid from the projects, tattered clothes on, but very good demeanor. I understood how to respect my elder. And so I still have a deep affinity and respect for my elders. And so, and them seeing that, they always would welcome me in and support me. So that was my earlier, my experience in coming into Bayview-Hunters Point. It was my home. It was the place where, in fact, I was born. It was where my parents met. It was where my parents partied. My earliest memories, Bayview-Hunters Point. That's amazing. It's amazing you asked that. I would be the person you would ask that question. I like to call myself a sober soldier, and that's sort of like a street term in a sense. So my first experience when I knew it hit was when I first saw the first drive-by in San Francisco, and it was right on my block. I lived on Harbor Road at the time, and I saw young guys I got on the bus with who had a fistful of cash, had a little 25 pistol, and had them a little car. And first, all they had was 15 cents to be able to get on the bus. Didn't even have that until all of a sudden I come back and they got a wad of money in their pocket. They got a little car and they got a little gun. And my pre-experience to that, I'd already saw that my stepfather, who was a Vietnam veteran, always liked to call myself a child of Vietnam. But, I experienced Vietnam, the eyes of my stepfather, who it may rest in peace, who went to Vietnam at 16 and came out at 26. But when he came out, he was told that he had a job waiting for him. So he was believing like, okay, I got this job waiting for me. And I never forget, I was the first person to see him coming back out. He was 26 coming out, and he had his cashmere jacket hanging over his head. He had his fedora, and he said, don't worry, tomorrow we're going to get some good news. And tomorrow ended up turning into 30 years of a very difficult upbringing, because he went and didn't realize that it was a psych eval meeting that told him that he would never, ever be able to get a job, that he will never qualify to work. Although he was a master mathematician, he was a master weapons specialist, which was a real deep, I would say a very deep struggle for us all when the 80s hit, because it was my house that was actually the crack house. It was my house where all the crack and the drugs was cooked. I could say that now. And a lot of the guys who call themselves high rollers, that's where they got their money. They because my stepfather had a method for cooking it that would bring them back profits hand over figure. And so from that experience and me seeing that, I had already decided that I would never drink, smoke, get high. I've never done it, never will. I didn't even drink no coffee. Like everything, I didn't drink nothing. Like, you're not gonna catch me on nothing. And so because I saw it hit my stepfather so hard, and he was like the man. He was like, in terms of the streets, people respected him immediately. He was the poster man for the 80s in terms of knowing the streets, knowing weapons, knowing how to keep respect on, whatever he had going on, even though it wasn't that much. But anyway, he understood what it meant to protect himself and his family to the degree that he felt that he could. So I've seen some amazing stories from that experience. My mother said we had to move. We were moving from Fillmore, moving back to Hunters Point, Harbor Road at this time. And I just said, wow, I'm going to be closer to my grandmother. I'm gonna be able to see her all the time. I was turning 13, so I'm helping to move things, and we get to Harbor Road. We get there because my stepfather actually had a job, got him the job being a security guard, where he was securing the new space that was happening on Harbor Road, the current new house. At this time, it was these brown LaSalle developments, brown houses that were developed on the other side where the projects where we weren't moving in the brown house, we were moving in the projects. So moving on the other side of the fence that I had to climb to get to school. And so we get there, and I noticed, meet all these women that my mother used to throw parties in Bayview-Hunters Point. And so she would throw these parties because she went to Mission High, and she'd have all these big parties, which later would be called block parties. But she would throw these parties, and that's what she was well known for. She would play her music and invite her friends over, and they had all kinds of fun. So I would meet all of those friends, and in the process of her meeting her friends, she would say, my son liked to do art. This experience has kind of followed me through my whole life, just everybody knowing that I did art, that I had something special going with art. I already knew who I was, actually. I already knew that I had mission here on earth, which was to minister through my art. I had already understood that. And so that I didn't realize how heavy that wisdom already was. And so I was very different from everybody. I made totally different decisions blatantly and never hid my decisions. And so that was something that kind of developed a real respect for me over the years. With that experience, I never forget, I did this drawing, and one of my mother's friends said, wow, this is so beautiful. And she said, can I have this? And I said, well, yeah, that was the first time someone asked, can I have your art aside from my mother? So I said, yeah. And, I don't know if many people experience the fist in hand, that type of thing. And I feel a little cushion, needed some dollars in there. And I looked in this $80. And I'm like, whoa, this is $80. I'm like 13 years old. This is $80. It was a lot for me at that time. I didn't even have a nickel. I used to help elders with bags, and the most I would probably get is about $25. That would get us a chicken and some bread and some beans, and we ride that until we can get through the end of the week, But this $80 was just a whole lot for me. And I realized, I said, wait a minute. By this time, I understand that people got paid hourly. And I said, wow, that only took me less than an hour. If I can do more artwork and other people give me $80, I can have a lot of money, and other people would say, you're not going to make no money being an artist. But here I am, a young kid, 13 years old, $80 in my hands. And it was something I did for me, I didn't go to school for it or anything. It was just, I was always self-taught like that. So later from that, people would come by and say, well, would you draw a picture of me? I had one family friend who had a baby, and she asked me, will you draw a picture of my baby? And I'll get $50 here, $60 there. And I said, oh, I'm going to keep doing this thing. This is going to be my rep. This is going to be what people know me for. This was after that first drive-by I told you about, and after the crack epidemic really started taking effect in my own household. It wasn't like a lot of people talk about it in the neighborhood. This was in my house, so it really affected my household. And so I was totally against it. I had a lot of rage in my heart for the government, because I understood that it was a government plot and plan very early, because I understood how it hit my stepfather, how he came and he would always talk about the Agent Orange and the government. And, I would spend days and days in the library trying to figure out what's this Agent Orange stuff. Well, I understood it was a product of several programs happening throughout government attacks, in different countries, that is. And so this, the Agent Orange and opium and all of these drug crises were brought back home from the soldiers, and that's how they were able to sort of push drugs into the community along with guns. So from that being experienced, I began using my art as a way of expressing as a way of expressing my my form, expressing my art, and I would speak actually to I would actually speak to my peers. So a lot of folks who was selling drugs, out there on drugs, they would come into my house to get their drugs cooked. And in the process, they see a huge mural on there that I would paint on canvas. And in the process of painting that on canvas and them seeing it, it would say, you know, I did this one painting that said blood spill era. And and I would have all these different types of sayings that would come from my ability to write poetry. So they would see these poems, and the poems would affect them in a way where they had that come with respect rather than disrespect. Next thing you know, I got all these people who want to come to my house and watch me paint and talk to me on some wisdom. They just thought I had wisdom to impart. I ran this one program out of my own pocket called Prophets of the Ghetto. And what we would do is you had to have a bike and a fast pass in the city of San Francisco. What we would do is we would ride our bikes from Harbor Road to Ocean Beach. And I would teach them about looking at San Francisco because I lived all over San Francisco. And the beauty I would find is really something I would take back to the canvas. I would take it back to my drawing book. And it was amazing until one day, my best friend was no longer with us. You know, there was a murder. When I heard the shots, it was right in front of my window. It was right in front of my door. So people said, well, he was looking, he saw it. So they came and looked for me to ask me to do the testimony. And so the lawyers were trying to sort of calm me down, like, don't worry, you know, we just want to ask you questions. And one of the guys came into my mother's house and saw all this artwork I did and was like, wow, who did this? He did this. Oh, wow. So I meet with him and he goes and buys me all of these markers. He bought me my first art table. And these are the type of the things that really opened up me. So everything I have in my life is really from the conviction I made to staying with my art, staying what I really love to do. And that's what really helped me move forward, you know, to traveling around the world, being able to spend I didn't travel a lot of places until I traveled to a few places until my son was born. When my son was born, I really began pushing forward this idea of legacy to try to have something to pass down to my son. The idea was that, you know, I taught so many other young men in my life, and now it was time for me to use those skills to raise my son. And so I made sure I stayed in the community so that my son would have a community that would welcome him. The type of person I am today is because I continued at the drawing board.